Welcome back to the Writer's Workshop, where we give you the tools to unleash your creativity and flourish. I am Lady V.
I'm Alice Brown.
And today we are going over how to write a fantasy world that feels real.
Because let's face it, when we delve into a book, we want to put ourselves into that story quite often.
We read for escapism.
So how do you write a fantasy world that feels real to your readers? One of the first things that you have to remember is that picture that's in your head that you just, your whole story is surrounding. Your readers can't see that. They cannot see inside your head whatsoever. I'm sorry to deliver that news, but
it's your job as a writer to write your world in such a good description and detail without info dumping that they can picture that world and that scene that you have in your own mind's eye.
A good way of doing this is info dump on a separate sheet of paper or a separate document. Write down all the details. Write down everything that's in your mind that goes on in that world or that town, whatever you've created.
It doesn't even have to be written perfectly. Just get it down.
Just get it down and then start weaving those details into your story, one or two at a time.
When the story calls for it and is appropriate.
The wonderful thing about fantasy is there are virtually no rules. You can create any world you want to. Now, things are a little bit different if you're writing a fantasy book based in a real place. But for right now, we are talking about a fantasy world or even a current world at a future date. You've got quite a bit of leeway on that one too. But if you're writing either one of those, there's pretty much no rules.
No.
You can create whatever it is you want in your mind's eye. The secret is to make sure your fans can see what's in your mind's eye by the time they get finished with that story. One of the things that we did that I felt like helped us out when we did Sci-FiFantasy and the Dragon series is we described the world of Draganos.
Which is very different from our own.
But one of the places that are in just about all the books, at least the first
Five, actually.
Actually, first five, all 5 books, so 5 out of 6, is the Draganos Pub and Grill. And so what we did is at the back of the book is we created a menu to make it look like,
a real place.
A real place,
restaurant.
And it goes over drink specials and you've got food that you can order. And Lady V and I had a blast.
We did.
Coming up with all this stuff. We also decided to go through and there's a description of the food for our human guest.
Because, we have the dragons who are bringing their mates from Earth to Draganos. They're not familiar with the different herbs and plants and beasts that they use in substitute of chicken and wheat.
So, for instance, you've got the Wheaterskin bread, a sweet bread made from the wheater's grain grown only on Draganos. The grain is naturally sweet, and each loaf is approximately the size of a large meat platter, making it 2 to 3 times larger than a standard loaf of bread on Earth. And it goes on together, giving you more, but we decided to put this in the books to make it feel real.
It's a good way of substituting instead of always info dumping and reiterating in a series like this. You can info dump on the first book on the different foods and explaining them. And as long as you're not introducing new foods in the future books, you don't have to go into as much info dumping unless it is a new dish. And then yes, I would say detail that one particular. But that way the menu is at the back of every single one of the Draganos books, allowing somebody to not have to sit there and reread the info dumping on the menu and on the food and its origins and everything in every single book. You get it in one book and then you're done. But if somebody picks up book 2 instead of book 1 or even book 3 and reads that first, they have a reference at the back of the book for
what
all the
everything
food.
is.
Yeah.
Very true. Now, we're going to go over real quick writing fantasy within a real world. And you do have more constraints there.
You do.
When I wrote Vampires Among Us and even the Texas Rangers, they are set in real world places. one's in California, one's in Texas, in modern day. So I had to be very careful in describing the world and making it as real as I could get it. And so, we've got a series that'll be coming out next year, Monster Mob, that is
in Hoboken,
New Jersey. And we took several trips there, and I did extensive note taking on where everything was located at, so that when I describe that town, it's actually described as the town really is. And that's important for your readers, because you will get nailed on it otherwise. You will get nailed if you try saying that, something is there that really isn't.
Well, actually, you did a little bit of it. It was introduced into book 2 of the Dragons of Dragonos series, Fire and Ice, because King Thorin went to Earth for his sons, and they were in Hoboken. New Jersey, with this other group that we will be branching off into another series with.
Yeah, and some of that realism came into that.
Walking in downtown and going to the park for the movie night, that's all real. That actually happens. I will say that neither one, writing a completely fantasy world or writing a fantasy in the current world, is either easier or harder. So do not use this as a way of trying to pick which way your story should lean. Go with what you're comfortable with. There are constraints on both of them. There are different things that you're going to have to work through on both of them. Neither one is easier or harder.
No, with a real world situation, you're probably going to have to do your research to make sure you've got your details right. If it's a fantasy world, you're going to have to make sure that your reader understands what you're talking about and the world that you've developed.
If you're going more fantasy times, there's a lot of lingo that is in modern day that cannot be used in that, because it's too modern. A lot of our slang cannot go into that. And so that's something to take in consideration.
Very true.
But that's it for today, and we thank you for joining us. And as always, don't stop learning and never stop dreaming.